Back 4 Blood is here, folks, and it sees developer Turtle Rock return to doing what it does best: 4-player, co-op, zombie shooting, with an AI director throwing all kinds of mutated monstrosities at you. It's good to be back, but with Left 4 Dead 2 releasing over a decade ago now, God that makes us feel old, you might find, like us, that you're a little rusty, and no matter how much we keep accidentally calling the game Left 4 Dead 3, we can't forget that this is a new IP with new gameplay mechanics and features to get to grips with. And that's what this video is for. Whether you just want a tip or two to help you get past a tough mission on recruit difficulty, or you're bashing your head against nightmare missions and need to tip the odds in your favour, we've got a ton of advice to help give you the upper hand. Ready, cleaners? Let's go. So, what's the first thing you'll need to do before facing off against the zombie apocalypse? There's only one thing for it, of course: building a deck of cards? Yeah, you heard that one right. Unlike Left 4 Dead, Back 4 Blood features a variety of cards to collect and buy, each one offering some kind of boost, buff or alteration to the way you play. At the beginning of the game you'll start out with only a few weak cards, but the more you play, the more you can unlock, and these cards are absolutely essential to facing off against the hordes at higher difficulties. While the starting cards are basic, you'll unlock new cards at Chender the vendor in Fort Hope by spending supply points. The more supply lines you complete, the more become available, and you can pick and choose the lines which contain the cards you'd most like. For example, if you're playing as Doc the medic, you'll want to dive into the clinic supply line at first, which features some great cards for boosting your healing prowess. If you don't want to commit to one particular build, however, there's plenty of good all-purpose cards to add to your deck. The combat knife is near essential, giving you a strong melee weapon without taking up your secondary weapon slot. Perfect for those moments where you want to conserve some ammo. Run and gun lets you shoot while sprinting, which can be a lifesaver if you've got to get somewhere fast, while even a card as simple as Share the Wealth, which gives all players 100 copper to spend at the beginning of each level, can help everyone buy a life-saving medkit before leaving the safe room. Oh, and make sure to think long and hard about the order of the cards in your deck. They aren't dealt at random, so your top card will always be with you when you start, and you'll begin picking up the top cards from then on. The best decks will combine a few all-use cards with a bunch of cards that complement your character and playstyle. While we're on the topic of characters, Back 4 Blood features 8 playable characters, or cleaners as they're known, and you'll have to choose carefully to make the most of their abilities. While all of them are useful to some extent, there are a few obvious choices that you'll want on every single run. Doc is near essential to keep the team healthy, able to heal everyone once per level even with no healing kits to hand. Meanwhile, Mum, or Mom, gives the team an extra chance to be downed, which will be happening a hell of a lot at higher difficulties. Equally important is building a deck that complements your chosen cleaner's natural abilities as well. Holly, for example, is a melee machine, sporting a bat as a starting weapon, extra damage resistance, and the ability to regain stamina for every kill, which is perfect for stamina draining melee weapons. If you then build a deck of cards like Meth Head, which boosts melee attack speed and reduces stamina consumption, and stack that with similar cards like Slugger, Energy Bar, Vanguard, Spiky Bits, Batter Up, and Mean Drunk, you'll be cleaving through Ridden with a baseball bat of doom. For each and every character, you'll be able to find similar cards that complement their style. Doc pairs well with stuff like Combat Medic, Charitable Soul, Medical Professional, Poultice, and Experienced EMT to boost her healing, while Carly's ability to sense nearby mutated will benefit from cards like Mark for Death, which highlights mutated that you ping and allows everyone to deal 10% more damage to it, and Confident Killer, which gives everyone extra damage each time a mutation is killed. And of course, you've got to make sure the people you're playing with actually suit the characters and cards they're using. If your mate is playing as Doc, but insists on running ahead and using melee weapons, maybe suggest they switch to Holly, that might work. If you're going to make it through Nightmare difficulty, or even some of the trickier missions on Veteran, every player needs to know their role and execute it to perfection. Speaking of players running ahead into danger, here's a tip: don't do that, don't be a lone wolf and get yourself killed. How you play with your teammates is of the utmost importance in Back 4 Blood, and you'll want to know where everyone is and what they are doing at all times. Sticking together will give you the best chance of survival, but you will need to adjust depending on the circumstances. Is the AI director sending a load of Reekers, Exploders and Retchers at you? You'll want to fan out in order to avoid their AoE damage. Players getting picked off by Stingers and Stalkers on the reg? Group up so you can quickly come to each other's aid. And what do you do on the off chance you have to split up? Say, if there are 2 separate objectives to complete at once. Split into pairs, of course. The buddy system works wonders on school trips, and it works here too, as you still have a teammate to watch you back. Foolproof. Even outside of battle, you can help each other out by purchasing the team upgrades at the beginning of each chapter, letting players carry more items like medkits or making grenades more powerful. If you rotate who buys the upgrades each time, you can all benefit without spending too much copper. Oh, and one other thing you really need to think about when positioning: friendly fire. If you're going to try and tackle the nightmare difficulty, you're also going to have to prepare to take a lot of friendly fire damage from your allies. To avoid this as best you can, try and organise your team. Players closer to the enemy can crouch down so that the teammates behind them can shoot overhead. It may seem obvious, but in the heat of battle, and with Ridden bearing down on you, it can be easy to forget simple things, like not running in front of your friend's bullets, for example. And on top of everything, communication is just absolutely key. You're going to want to make sure you're on your mic, constantly talking, keeping each other aware of exactly what's happening and where it's happening. Work together and you'll be able to clean up the Ridden in no time at all. Guess what's better than trying to shoot a bunch of zombies that are attacking you from all angles? How about shooting a bunch of zombies that are coming through one easily defendable choke point? No matter what the situation in Back 4 Blood, there's normally always some way to use the map to your advantage. Even something as simple as jumping on top of a nearby truck can work wonders, giving you a better vantage point to scope out your surroundings and letting you snipe off nearby zombies before they can climb up and deal damage. And it's not just high ground you need to be on the lookout for. Every door is a possible bottleneck, letting you gun down the horde before they can even touch you. Any car is a useful cover to keep the Ridden at a distance, or in some cases a handy explosive to take out large groups of them. Conventional wisdom will tell you that getting cornered is a bad thing, cutting off your chances for escape, but in Back 4 Blood, there's nothing like a good corner. Having your back up against the wall lets you concentrate on what's in front of you without taking damage from behind. You'll want to take as little damage as possible too, as too much will cause your character trauma, which can cut your maximum health right down. You know what else is great as topping zombies? Fire and explosions, and you can make use of what's around you here as well. Fuel and gas canisters handily littered around the map can be carried, thrown and placed wherever you'd like, ready for you to put a bullet in and catch a nearby beastie in the blast. Barbed wire too can be purchased in your safe room for a few extra copper at the beginning of a round, and when placed well, it can help needle the enemy's health when you're defending a point. Oh, and if you want even more explosions, there are cards that let you carry twice as many grenades and molotovs. Lovely stuff. As long as you keep your eyes peeled in Back 4 Blood, you'll be able to take full advantage of your environment and get the upper hand against the Ridden and their mutated hordes. Every little helps. There are a hell of a lot of weapons in Back 4 Blood. Assault rifles, SMGs, snipers, LMGs, shotguns, and plenty of variation in each category. What you find out in the field in each mission is randomised, so the last thing you want is to accidentally pick up a weapon that doesn't click with you right before your climactic showdown. Luckily, the game's Fort Hope hub has a shooting range that would make even the most hot-blooded Texan blush, and you should make sure to take full advantage of it. Put a podcast on, set aside an hour, and just go to town trying out each and every weapon. This way you'll get a feel for recoil, reload times, damage, and you can even try out all of the attachments to see what works and what doesn't. This way, you won't be caught short in the field using a light machine gun with an ACOG scope and realising it might be a bad idea, and it definitely is a bad idea in my experience. In general, scopes can make things more difficult in some situations, so maybe stick to the reflex sight and the hollow sight, but it's all about trying it out for yourself, and that's where the shooting range comes in handy. The firing range also lets you test out some of the game's mechanics without the stress of being mauled by a bloodthirsty mutant, and you might discover some cool shit in the process. Melee attacks, whether with your fists or the combat knife, don't interrupt your reloading animation, so feel free to get stabby even when you can't shoot. On top of that, throwables like grenades and molotovs will show you the area of effect with a nice red circle on the ground if you hold down the throw button, something we'd never have clocked when chucking them about at speed in the campaign, but was easy to notice when we were on the firing range. As for what weapons to pick, in our experience you really can't go too wrong with automatic weapons in Back 4 Blood. Assault rifles, SMGs, LMGs, they provide a good combination of range, spread, damage and accuracy when you're taking on the hordes. Sniper rifles are slightly more situational if we're honest. Great for taking out mutated Ridden from a distance on some of the more open maps, but not great when you're holed up in a basement shooting monsters at point blank. Paired with a melee weapon used in Holly's build we mentioned earlier though, that could work too. Shotguns don't quite have the same devastating impact we've come to expect from zombie games, but you might find it perfect for how you play. It's all about experimenting on the range. Just don't use the Belgian as your sidearm, it takes far too long to reload and you'd be way better off with the Desert Eagle or the Tech 9 quite frankly. Oh, and while you're on the firing range, you can play around with the aim assist and ADS snap options here as well, and work out if they work for you. If not, you can turn them off. But if you do keep ADS snap on, top tip, aiming just above an enemy will snap your aim to their heads when you tap the left trigger, so make sure you always aim high. If there's one thing we can't emphasise enough in Back 4 Blood, it's this: don't dawdle. While it can be tempting to fully explore each map or try and kill every Ridden that you see, the best bet is always to make it to your next objective as soon as possible. The more time you spend in any one location, the more opportunities you're giving the horrible AI director to send something gruesome your way. Back 4 Blood will even emphasise this sometimes, telling you to hurry to your next objective, and you better listen if you don't want to be overwhelmed. You can even run straight past certain boss fights or tough encounters and head straight to the safe room sometimes. It's always an option. Well, sometimes an option. It's all about balance though, and just because you've got to get somewhere fast doesn't mean you suddenly got to ignore our early advice and become a lone wolf. You still got to move as a team, you still got to check your corners for any traps, birds, snitches or hags that you might trigger. Those are horrible. The last thing you need is for the horde to be called down on you. But unless there's a really good reason not to, such as some sort of specific objective to complete, we recommend doing one thing. Whatever you're doing, do it quickly. The baddies in Back 4 Blood are a massive pain in the arse to deal with. They are purpose made to disrupt your best laid plans, and with an ethereal AI director pulling the strings, you'll often find that the best possible roadblock that Back 4 Blood can throw at you will turn up at the worst possible moment. The good news is that each and every one of them can be taken down, and with some good teamwork and decent knowledge, you will be able to deal with them quickly. The first thing you need to be able to do though is tell each of the mutated Ridden apart, and that can be difficult, especially within each category. You've got 3 different types of tall boys, the fellas with the big arms, 3 different Reekers, the big bulky ones that explode, and 3 Stingers, those skinny bastards that leap and run around and grab you and drag you off, and they are a nightmare. Even if you don't know their official names, make sure your squad has their own callouts for them. I keep calling the tall boys the big arm fellas and it seems to work, and make sure you let your team know where they're coming from. The mutated are the very first enemies you want to take down in any combat encounter, not the Ridden, the mutated. And if you can kill them before they get too close, then all the better. If they do get in amongst you, it's better to surround them so they can only target one cleaner, rather than hitting all of you at once. Even when you can't see them, you'll be able to learn and pick out the audio cues that let you know that one of them is nearby, letting you prepare for their arrival. If you followed all of our tips so far, stick together as a team, and picked the weapons, characters and cards to suit the situation, you'll do just fine with any of the baddies. So, those are our 7 top tips for surviving and thriving in Back 4 Blood. Good luck out there cleaners, and if you found this video helpful, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more, and give the video a like to let us know that you enjoyed it. Cheers folks, bye!